continue. I got a little...
I am assuming that we are live at this point. I actually have no way of checking that.
I can see we have attendees in the participants column, so.
Oh, great.
I think we are.
Great. Attendees are going up there. So hi, my name is Cully Long. I am the Scenic Design and Stage Management Professor here at Weber State University. And we are here tonight for Working, which is going to be a roundtable discussion about theater careers, sort of focusing on technical theater careers and that side of things. So tonight I have with me Cherie B. Cherie is a stage manager primarily, correct? Okay, is a stage manager. She was the assistant stage manager on Hadestown, stage manager on Amelie the Musical, and the national tour of In the Heights. And you're also a voiceover artist and musician, right?
Yes, that is. And photographer and videographer. And
photographer, okay.
Warhorse.
Great.
Amazing.
Oh, wow. Okay, then we have Brenden Boyd, who is a lighting designer and production manager. You specialize in concerts and corporate events and have worked for, done concerts for Tim Burton, Kristen Chenoweth, people like that, and events for Disney, Jack Daniels, Ralph Lauren, City of New York. Big long list.
The list goes on, right? The list goes on.
And Michael Kramer, who is a scenic designer and art director for television, theater, and event design. And you designed for CBS Sports, the NFL, and most recently, the new ESPN Vegas and the Steve Harvey Show.
That's right. Yes, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And we also have Jessica Greenberg, who is our professor of lighting design here at Weber. She's going to be acting as our moderator when we get to the Q&A at the end of things. So hopefully everybody's doing all right tonight. I want to start with what drew you guys to theater as a career?
Who starts?
Just throw your hat in the ring and go.
Well, I'll start. You know, I started, it was a gig in high school. It's part of the show choir. You know, I was in band and choir. I wasn't in choir. I had a terrible voice, but I was in band. So we set up stuff. We were always on stage crew. And there was one show, it was a show choir show. And there was a specific moment that the cast was left, stage right, stage left. And they were like, la, 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 la. And no one ever did anything with lights. So I hung a Fresnel over each circle of people. And then I had to figure out, no one knew how to run the light board. So I had to figure out how to make two handles to just crossfade them. And I had it all queued up, ready to rock. You know, they're in dress rehearsal. My appendix nearly burst. I had to go to the hospital, right? Missed the show. I saw a picture of the show. It was just like lights on, you know, it was like, oh man, my, you know, tireless effort. But I caught the bug after that, you know, like I didn't realize that could do lighting was like so energizing and it actually had a payoff. And not just monetarily, I didn't think of that early on, but actually sitting there in the theater by your, you know, with 5 people and they're like, whoa, that's cool, do it again, you know? And then we do, it's cool and we do it again, just bigger, scale it up. And then the rest is history, I guess.
I think that's a lot of our experiences, that thing of having to figure something out for ourselves and then sort of growing it from that and turning it into something real.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go next.
Okay.
I came to theater late. I was in college, probably a year or so in, and kind of just meandering my way through. And it was just there pretty much. And I was always good at drafting and that kind of thing was what I was majoring in. And industrial engineering was my major. And I was fine with it and I could do it and it was whatever. But then I had to take a theater class and ended up having to see, you know, one of the shows that semester, and it was House of Blue Leaves. And I remember coming into the space, you know, the theater, and it was pre-show, and the lighting in there and the kind of feeling that the set was giving was just such a magical thing that just struck me immediately. And I sat and watched the show and just was transfixed by it all. And soon after that, you know, I got connected in the theater and started to work backstage, and, you know, was a techie kind of person. And because it was a small school, I was able to start, you know, scenic painting and then props, and then quickly, you know, doing more than maybe at a bigger school would have allowed. And I just fell for it. And it was a good niche that I found between having this kind of technical skill in my life and also having this kind of artist kind of drive to create and drive to make things that I was missing before that. And it caught me, and you know, never turned back, I guess.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cherie, how about you? What drew you in?
My parents took me a lot of shows when I was a kid, of like Annie and Les Miserables and Joseph and the Technicolor, Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat when I was growing up in Singapore. But there wasn't a lot of arts there, so I came to the US, and in high school, someone was like, "Hey, you want to pull curtains?" I was like, "I don't know what that means, but yes, sure, why not?" And so I pulled curtains for the fall play, and then I ended up somehow just stage managing for like the rest of high school. So my parents were like, "Well, you could do this for a career, I think." And so they sent me a list of colleges, and off I went, and then just kept doing it.
Nice. Humble beginnings for all of you guys. That's an interesting side of things. So let's flip to the other side of that. From these humble beginnings, what do you feel like are your proudest accomplishments in your career so far? Cherie, we can start with you this time.
Yeah, that's fine. So I pretty much have reached all of my goals that I set out to do when I was a kid. Like I was like, I want to work on Broadway. I'm working on Broadway. And then even smaller stuff, you know, I worked on a tour, which I wanted to do. I've worked internationally. I worked at the New York City Ballet, which was like amazing. I've done live events. So like I feel like just living the dream, which is so cliche, but doing it and loving it, that would be definitely like my proudest accomplishment.
Awesome. Yeah, I often say, you know, I've lived in New York City for X number of years, and I never had to wait tables or work at Starbucks. So, you know, I feel pretty good about my career from that viewpoint.
But you're not an actor.
I am not an actor, no. That's, but you know, technicians wait tables too.
You're right. You're right.
All right, Brenden, what do you feel is your proudest?
Oh man, it's hard. This is one of the hardest ones early on, you know. I think I'm with Therese here. It's like where we able to work in a field and it's not really work, you know, like that's as the jobs get bigger, they don't necessarily get harder because I'm still surrounded by the team of people that I like working with. And over time, building my own company, that's a great accomplishment. It's successful. We got people working for us. We're doing big projects. All aside, COVID aside, you know, like we're all doing well there until whatever. But, you know, it's being able to like build that team around us. That's what's really cool about this field, is that it's transient in a way, but it's a good way, because you could say, you know what, that was a really great epic show, but man, that sound guy was terrible. I would never want to cross paths with that guy again. You know what I mean? And you probably don't have to, you know, you'll find your way, you'll go, or a lighting guy, or, you know, I'm not singling out the audio guy, but, you know, it could be anybody. But then you build your team around you, of the producing team, your design team, your creative team. You work with similar people. And if you're not working with that director you really jive with, she'll have a friend that she's good friends with that naturally, by guilty by association, she's going to be as cool as your friend, you know, like, and then it's a new person, but they already get with the team. So I think that's really unique to our field. And that draws to like the proudest accomplishment is the team that I'm with now is a good one. Like, I like it, and we're all happy, and we keep on getting jobs, and we keep on working, and we're doing good. You know what I mean? Like, so it's always a great feeling when you get the right team around, and you know, everybody, like all those gears are working together and everything is, you know, smooth. Theater is about collaborative nature, right? That's what really, it makes it really unique to any other thing. Like we have, you know, my wife is a scientist, a neuroscientist. There's collaboration, but it's a Google Doc that just goes like endlessly on and on and on, and they just read each other's stuff and bounce it off them up. But it's not, you know, there's not the social collaborative thing that you're all working towards a goal that's like So whatever that goal is, we're gonna have a big flashy trash commercial, or we're gonna have a huge show, or we're gonna have this little tiny little pop up in the middle of a park somewhere. All that stuff takes, you know, all those cogs, and they all got to move freely and good. And that's what I think. It's really cool that we're in that I have that opportunity to do it for a living and do all right.
Michael, you have an accomplishment you want to toot your horn over?
Yeah, it was hard, you know, thinking about that. There's lots of them. I'm always proud of the one we're working on right now, you know, but really trying to put a thumbtack in that. I guess it would be, I was lucky enough to design the CBS sports stuff for the New Orleans Super Bowl in 2013. I'm from New Orleans, and my wife and I were moving from New York to go to Los Angeles, and that all kind of came together strangely. You know, I was in between jobs, and I had an opportunity to pitch for this huge thing while we were moving, and ended up getting it with friends in New Orleans. And at the time, you know, the city was finally coming out of everything that happened from Katrina, and this huge event that's worldwide and whatnot. And to come home and contribute and be part of that, and just with this kind of size production, was wonderful and really a really exciting thing, you know. So what we do, you guys probably experience this too, is, you know, we're all away from home. Most of us are on the road or having to live in New York or where have you, and being from wherever you're from, you don't necessarily get to connect with the people that are at home, and they don't necessarily understand what you do or what the hell it is. So it was exciting for that as well, for family and friends to experience that. So altogether, it was a really important moment, I think, in my life.
A little bit of a homecoming wrapped
definitely.
into everything.
Absolutely.
So in you guys' career, you've all sort of branched out into some other areas that are related to theater, but aren't necessarily what we would consider like traditional theater, right? So how do you think that your background in theater sort of prepared you for these next steps to like move into something bigger and stranger than actual theater?
You know, I think it was the training, right? You go to school for it, and you got to take costume and scenic and lighting, and then you got to take all these. And depending on where you went, I had to take it was called acting 1 or direct or something. Theater 1 was the name of it. I had to take an acting class also. Technicians had to take that, but you had to take a theater class that all of you had to do a show. And that was the point of the semester. Was you like to do sets? Michael's doing sets. I like to do lights. I'll do lights. You know, she says, you know, like we all want to do our thing, and then you put out, but no one knows what they're doing as freshmen. You know what I mean? You got to figure it out. So you go in, you dig, and that kind of mentality tracks through all the way. Not just the technician side of things. Everyone just wants to get in there and do it. You know, Michael said something earlier. Is like the drive to make things. I never really thought about it, but that's what we're doing all the time. Like we're always making, and that's really hit home there. Is like that's what it is, you know, like we're jack of all trades, master of none to a certain degree, you know. Even Broadway, when you get up there, you're supposed to be the master of that trade, but you still have to know all the other ones, because you got to be, you know, you got to be able to collaborate and make it all work. So,
well, we all know stage managers know everything. That's right. Like stage managers are the pinnacle of theatrical knowledge.
You hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like the same thing with reflecting what you're saying, where even on Broadway, people still have to learn. And even as a human, you know, when you turn 50, you got to learn how to climb stairs differently. Everyone's always learning. And in regards to breaking out into other areas, I feel like taking all those classes is super important. Whatever level you are at, keep learning, because inevitably that's going to help. No matter what, you learn the guitar, maybe like your crew guy is like super into guitar, and then y'all start jamming, and then you have a great relationship. You have no idea what could bridge you to somebody that could relate you. So I also do photography and videography, and I got hired by Hadestown to take backstage photos of Michelle Obama. So stuff like that, of like using your theatrical knowledge to say, okay, you know what, I'm not going to use a flash, obviously, especially, well, it wasn't during a show, but stuff like that. If you're taking photos, you know what to do, what not to do. If you're taking photos backstage, obviously don't step out of the wings. You know what a sight line is. I do voiceovers as well, which I've done corporate events, so I've also done some voiceovers for that. um, and then I do music where I teach ukulele, and then I ended up teaching the national tour of Margaritaville ukulele. So really, I feel like there's so many things that you do that do incorporate into theater and make you an asset in that field and out of the field.
Yeah, it's surprising sometimes how much we actually do know, and we don't realize that we know these things until it comes time to use them.
Absolutely.
True, so true. Yeah, I mean, tying in with what you guys are saying, the kind of jack of all trades thing is so needed in the world, and sometimes we get too specialized and maybe we don't realize it. But I would say, like, looking back at my theater training, one of the things that kind of sets me apart in the field that I'm mostly in now, which is doing TV and broadcast TV for sports and what have you, I kind of come at it in a designer from the theater's point of view, which a lot of the guys and people out there that are working in my field don't have that kind of thing. So it sets me apart. Whereas, we're trained to sort of design from the script and from the character's perspective and some kind of essence of what the show is about and try to represent that on stage. And whereas, that's not the training or the way of thinking for other guys. So I think that benefits me in kind of giving me a unique aesthetic or a unique kind of thought process. Not that I was good, but it's something that I value, and I'm happy that I have that. Yeah.
Perspective.
So I think that's great.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome approach. Like, even, the sets of yours that I've seen really, without being theater, still have like that. They have that feeling of storytelling happening to them, right? That even though
That's
it's
right.
not a theatrical event, we're not telling a traditional story, but
Totally.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. And for me, I don't think there's any other reason to do stuff, so I don't want to just, make something for no reason, or that doesn't connect in some way.
Right. So along those lines, was there like a specific, maybe a gig or a mentor or something like that that sort of helped you guys transition from theater into some of this other stuff?
Sure. I mean, Cully and I know each other from years back in New York. And we both worked for a company called Hotop Associates, pounding the pavement every day in New York, trying to get work, and ended up at a place, that did a lot of entertainment and sort of events and lots of things that I, for one, didn't have the experience until I joined. And, we did TV, we did a little theater, not enough, but some, and grew so much just with the kind of idea of where these skills can take you, not that they're always fun or the best projects, meaning like I don't necessarily want to be putting audience into a corporate event, but it's work and it's good work, and it also opens your eyes to what else is going on out there. And I always say that I went to grad school in Illinois, but I did my residency at Hotop. But that's what it really feels like. We're there for 6 years and had a great experience. And a lot of the professionals that I met in the world, I still work with now, and has, enabled me to have my own company and whatnot.
Okay. Brendon or Cherie, do you guys have what was your step away from theater into?
Mine was pretty early on. I think I was early, I met a gentleman, Bill Bradford, and he was working with Joan Armatrading. And there was a big concert up at Mass MoCA, which is a converted factory into a museum, a contemporary art museum. Cool venue, cool place. And that and alone, I think, was one of the catalysts for shifting, because it was a completely atypical space. There's no fly space. There's nothing. We're out in a courtyard of buildings trying to make portable stage or something, cobble something together. And he comes out and he makes it look awesome, like 6 colors, par bar, par rig, just looked great. Deep, saturated colors, just good stuff, but not flashy, just stylized, saturated colors. And that was a huge tangent, like a divergent turn from all theatrical training, which is, you know, all the nice light pastels, you know, Jessica's curl, you know, I know she's over there, but when they're like, oh, we're kind of, no, I'm just kidding. The, you know, very, you know, you hit drama. You like that you create shadows to take them away. You fill the color underneath. There's all this theory of theater that's the drama underneath, but you do it subtly most of the time, you know. And then Bill comes in here and he pulls out, you know, literally like 4 or 5 Lee colors, and he puts them in the bar cans, and it's a rockin' show. You know, it looks great. I didn't know who it was. It didn't matter. It just looked at it. So then afterwards, I was working on the stage crew. So I went over there and did the whole, you know, here's my card. We don't do that anymore, but you know, it was like, here it is. And it's Vista print. I got like 100 of them for $2 or whatever. And, you know, and he's like, okay, great. Well, when you're done up here, come down to Brooklyn. He ran Arts at St. Anne's before they were down on the water now, but they're back at the church. And that was like the leap, that was the step right in New York. So when I moved down there, he put me to work at the church doing concerts and shows. And we were doing stuff with Philip Glass and all big names in this Brooklyn church, not knowing it at the time, just slinging a wrench. But he was the start of the concert trend, you know, like, and I did a couple little off Broadway because I was still in the union. So I'm still slinging a wrench, making money when I could. But I was really like trying to get into concert lighting, do it more, program in it, design it, whatever, just more and more and more. And that Bill was the guy that did it, that show.
Right.
I think that everyone does need a mentor and that nobody really does it alone, especially in this field. It really takes a village for anyone to get where they are. No one just comes in and goes, I'm the best and I'm gonna work here. If you do that, you'll never work.
Yeah, you're out.
But for me, I've always wanted to do Broadway, and I always knew that, and I just kept trying to break in on like subbing and dropping off my resumes and writing letters. None of it worked until I music assisted. So I somehow got on a music assisting path after In the Heights with Alex Lackamore. And did Bring It On with him. From there, met someone else. And then it got to this show, Dr. Zhivago, which if you've never heard of, totally fine. And we get to the show, and I'm offered a stage management position and a music position. And I said, you know what? For more money and less work, of course I'm going to take the music job. So I took the music job, and the stage manager there knew that I wanted to be a stage manager. So after the show closed, after two weeks after it opened, he took me along to the next thing, and I had no idea that he even was going to hire me as his first assistant. And he really took me under his wing and just brought me onto every other project since then, and just rode that Broadway train with him, and he taught me so much. It was really great.
I think the common tangent there, the common takeaway is like, you never know which one of even the menial jobs is going to be the one that like ends up building up to something else, right? Like everybody sort of focuses on the big splashy jobs, but you know, sometimes it's the small stuff that gets your foot in the door and gets you like noticed by somebody, or gets you that right contact that helps you move forward. What has been your most unusual theater-related job? Michael, I know you've got at least 2 that I also tell stories about, so.
I mean, you know, being at Hotop, we did so many weird things, from working at Macy's in Philadelphia, or I don't know, just you name it. And it ties in with the previous question, or question before last rather, with all of these kind of jobs and all these kind of like skills that we gain along the way. And, you know, it's hard to put my finger on any one specifically. I mean.
You don't want to talk about designing for the Pope?
Well, right. That's actually what came to my mind earlier when I was looking over the questions. We did the papal visit to Ground Zero. I mean, geez, there's so many fun and weird things. That in particular was absolutely amazing because, you know, Ground Zero at the time, the Pope visited Ground Zero. What year was it, do you think? 2009 or no?
Yeah, something like that, 8 or 9.
So it was the biggest thing ever. And we got to be involved with the Archdiocese of Brooklyn, the Archdiocese of New York, the city of New Jersey, and the city of New York, and who else? The
Secret Service, the Port
Secret Service,
Authority.
exactly. Like being in these political meetings with all of these big players, and also dealing with anything from, you know, the Pope Mobile and all of these kind of crazy sort of parts of that. And we basically just went into Ground Zero and dressed basically, I think it was about a 20-foot square platform that we made papal yellow. And it had a kind of a fountain in it that, you know, an infinity fountain that fell off the side. And it had a big candle that he lit when he got there. So we were involved with rendering all of that stuff and then actually building it on the day of, and also the crazy Secret Service security that we went through each day visiting. I remember being down in Ground Zero at the time on the morning of, and it was, you know, a New York day, and it was cloudy and cold and that kind of thing. And the buildings that were all around Ground Zero looking down into it, they had snipers up there and whatnot. And once in a while, a glimmer would catch my eye, and I would think, oh, I've just been scoped or something. You know, like, here we are, you know. And then he finally came down the ramp. It was a unbelievable moment that was seen internationally. When I was down there, my uncle happened to be in Africa, and he called me on the phone and he said, I just saw you on television, because I must have been walking across somewhere in the CNN, you know, crawl. He saw me walk, which is just insane. But that was one of the exciting things. And thanks for reminding me. I kind of drew a blank for a minute. But anyway, we did so many things like that, kind of weird ones. But they do all tie into some kind of theatrical style.
Yeah, it's still all theater.
Yeah, and it's all the same toolbox of things, you know.
Cherie, I don't know you well enough to remind you of an event, but do you have an unusual theatrical moment?
I feel like that's a hard one because same as Michael, like for me, they've all just been jobs. And until someone's like, remember that crazy thing you did? And you're like, oh my God, that was crazy. But when you're living your life doing the job, it just feels normal. You're like, this is what I do. I don't really have, like I said, I really can't think of anything right now where it's like super unusual. But I did do a really, really cool launch of an AOL like front where they got the entire South Street Seaport and then just had like buildings of different televisions and different stations and different like things and media and concerts, and it was amazing. It was just absolutely awesome, and I want to do that again.
Cool.
That's my answer.
Brenden, do you have an unusual one?
That's the thing. Unusual is what we do, it seems, you know, like
that's true.
It was like one of those things, odd problem solving and weird. Let's do 1,000 people singing a song on the High Line or something. But that's actually not that unusual in the weirdest way. But I'd say the most unusual theater related thing was relatively recently. It was around November last year. It was out in Cambodia, out in Phnom Penh, Cambodia, doing a show that we created in Cambodia and now took it around the world, like 5 stops, not like around, but enough, you know, New York, LA, Paris, and then back to Cambodia and UK, but I forgot London, but we were there. Anyway, we get back to the home turf, you know, here's the show created for Cambodians back to Cambodia. And the theater situation was not ideal. I'd say that, you know, like there just wasn't a lot of happenings in there. We had a nice stage, but there wasn't a lot of tech support. Let's be polite there. And then about a day into rehearsals, we had like a 3-day rehearsal with all the local cast, because then we had to recast there too. We find out that the king will be arriving for the opening night performance, and that this scenic piece can't be here, and our conductor can't turn his back to the king at any given point in the so we had to restage it in a way that people didn't put their backs towards the royalty, and that was a little unusual. So we had to make some shifts, you know, like it was it all turned out great and everyone was very happy and it was a big super success, you know, but it was definitely unusual. You know, some of the challenges that came up were not something I would even, and I don't have PTSD about it either. Some of those jobs, we can go into these war stories and really be like, oh my God, the people visit in New York. Oh, you know, you forgot about it because you buried it. You know what I mean? Like probably, you know, maybe, I don't know.
It's just
But
normal at this point. Yeah.
I have some of those, but this one was definitely quirky enough. We just had to keep on. There was always something new each day. It was like, all right, well, guess what? You know, we have no sound lights or anything because we have rolling brownouts, and that's what happens during this time of year. And it might come on, the power might come back on at 3 o'clock this afternoon, and we're like, oh, all right, no rehearsal, anyone? You know, like we have everyone there for rehearsal, and all right, let's figure something else out. Let's go on the front lawn and work on our lines, you know, like whatever. Like we make it work, but it was totally unusual quirk after unusual quirk in a foreign country that we get really used to here in the States. You can make a phone call and you have anything available to you whenever you need it pretty quick, you know, especially on the coasts, right? You can get anything you want right away. And out there, you're not. If you don't have a very basic thing like a SM58, a very standard microphone that everyone uses, and you need 8 of them, and they only have 7 of them available, you're not getting that 8th one. Like you have to bring it in from somewhere else. They don't have it, you know.
Or figure out how to do it.
I'm exaggerating. They have more than 7 microphones in the country, but that is we hit a couple of those thresholds that was like, no, we don't have that here. You know, we don't have access to it. I'm like, okay, you know, definitely unusual.
I've got a couple more questions in the planned questions, but I just wanted to remind our audience that the Q&A panel is open. So if you have a question that you would like to ask after I wrap up my portion, you know, please enter it into the Q&A there, and I will get to that after I wrap up the things that I had planned. So next question. Oh, yes. Just, you know, because I know we have a lot of college students here, and this is a university setting. What do you wish you knew at the beginning of your career that you know now? If you could like time travel and give yourself a little bit of advice, what do you think that would be?
I would say,
Go ahead. I'll go.
I would say that you don't have to know everything, and you're not going to know everything. Like, you don't have to be a perfectionist. Right. Nobody has all the answers. Don't be an eager beaver. And just learn. Take in all the information you can, and if you don't know an answer, say, you know what, I don't know it, but I'm going to look it up. And yeah. I had one more. Circle back to me. I'll remember it.
Okay. Michael, you were starting to come in there.
Yeah, this reminded me of something that we've talked about before, and that I've talked about with friends. Is, you know, I had a great university experience, and the tools that I learned in school I use every day still, and I'm so happy and proud of that. And thinking about the things that I wish I would have known or had education in or something, they have to do with the business side of theater and the business side of living once you're, you know, trying to do this out there in the world. You know, how do you get jobs? How do you make money? Or how do you meet people and network and all that sort of thing? And what I think all of us described is some kind of lucky moment that we met someone or that we did something, and not necessarily maybe like some kind of thing that you can do when you go out in the world, or some kind of thing that you can learn other than get lucky and meet somebody. You know, I don't want to just pass that on, but
but you have to set up that luck. You
Sure.
know, like there's a certain amount of, like, you and I met on that train to New Jersey because we went to that weird,
right.
New Jersey technical thing. And, you know, we both got work from each other because we met on that train. So,
right.
But, you know, we made that choice to go to that thing. So like we set up that luck and like made that luck be there.
I like
That's
when
true.
people say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So you have to be good at what you do, and you have to be prepared, and then you'll run into a train of someone who gets you a job, you know?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'll say about that is some things that I wish that I would have known was some kind of education about working in theater outside of university and whatnot is the kind of, like when you go into different venues and whatnot, all of the kind of things that are part of all of the venue stuff takes up so much time in your, as part of your design process. And those sort of things didn't weigh in, to, at least for me, beforehand. So when we went into New York and all of the crazy theater venues that we've worked in all over the city, and what they mean and how they work and loading in and what time and how you rig stuff in all of these different places, that's such a major part of what we do later. And that's something that you just had to learn on, you know, or had to make your way through it. So those are things that I wish that I would have had a better understanding about, you know, coming out, and not, maybe I would have a better kind of point of view to begin with, you know.
Yeah, those are hard things to learn when you have like an in-house venue and things like that. Like it's difficult to get that education. Brendon, do you have advice for your past self?
Never volunteer for feeder crew. It would be the first thing, you know, when early on, oh, I'll do feeder, no problem. I was like broken for 2 weeks. No, so that, seriousness aside, I think I would give my earlier self some business lessons, because that's like, we're all dealing with it, you know, like you have to figure out how to make it work. And then if you have to, you branch off, if you don't get a salary job from somewhere, you don't hook up with a company and they put you on set, how are you going to freelance? And what do you do when you freelance? And you gotta like feast or famine. There's a little bit of that, and prep you for that. And you got to have a build, like a mental build for it, because some people aren't cut out for it, you know. And I found that out throughout. It's like you can't, the uncertainty of freelance life tolls harder on other people than some, right? So
I think that's why a lot of people end up leaving.
Yeah, it's because you're like, you're free, you know. Or if you're like, all right, I'm just gonna work my butt off and bank, and then when January, everything's dead in January, all right, I'll you know, kind of prep me in a weird way for this pandemic kind of thing. Not this long, no one's can prep us for this, but you know, for a couple months of it, we already you know, save and squirrel away enough to keep those couple months. So that's just my freelance trade. I don't have to do it because we have a company. It's just happening, you know, but I still think that way because I've been 25 years of the business doing it that way. You have your program. So I give myself a little bit of business sense, kind of prep myself for how much work it's going to take, you know, if you can do it and dig in. And it's, again, it doesn't feel like a lot of work if you sync up with the right shows, right? Then you're just doing shows and having fun and, you know, doing it and setting them up and breaking them down and doing it again somewhere else. You know, it's rinse and repeat, and time kind of flies that way.
So last question from me. We're in a very interesting sort of moment in our history of live events and theater performance and live performance and that sort of stuff. What makes you hopeful about the industry right now?
I'll jump in real quick. So, you know, I think we're all yearning to experience something outside of the home, you know, something other than, you know, watching Netflix or whatever. Everyone's feeling that. And also because we're such busybodies and usually going and seeing things, and it's been hard. I'm sure it's hard for everyone, and certainly that's true. But a few weeks ago, we were lucky enough to get tickets to this show called The Present, which is a Geffen theater company production. And it is a Zoom show. And there was a huge buzz about it, you know, all summer. And it's really hard to get tickets because it's only 25 seats or 25 households or attendees. So per show is 25. Anyway, it's difficult to get seats and whatnot. So we were able to get those, and we just got them, and we did it, you know, in the middle of August, I think. But I bring this up because it was absolutely wonderful. You know, we do Zoom all the time now, and it sucks. It's like, I hate doing Zoom. But because we were experiencing a show that was amazing together, even though you're with a bunch of strangers and you could see their faces and everything, experiencing the show, and being amazed with this group of people, this group of strangers. It felt amazing. It felt like we were really in a theater, and it felt like we were really seeing something and experiencing it as a group. And it just gave me great hope and great, I'm feeling emotional about it because it felt wonderful, because it felt like a real kind of world again. And it gives me great hope because I understand now that theater can exist, outside of the theater, and you could still gain that same experience, and someone can still give you a story, or you could still tell a story if you're clever and smart enough, So if you're able to, that show's about to close, and there's one more performance. And I understand that it's called The Present again. They're selling tickets to more than 25. They're selling all of the tickets, but only 25 people will be able to actually talk to the performer and whatnot. But they're letting a lot of people watch because it's the last time. So it won't be the exact same experience, but it's still worth seeing if you're a theater person and you want to see what's happening.
Cool.
I'm actually working on a digital show right now called Theater for One. And it was Christine Jones who did it in New York. She did Harry Potter, and it's pretty much just a box, and then it's one actor and one person. So they turned it into a digital format where someone built this, amazing guy built a platform online, coded it, and you go in as an audience member, and then you get one-on-one with the person, which doesn't happen on Zoom or on any other digital show. Whereas this, we did an effect where it looks as though the person is looking at you and really connecting with you and just talking to you. So that gives me hope that people are still innovating and people still want theater. People come and they're like, oh my God, I've missed this. Thank you, And then I did the video with stage manager calls, and everyone's like, this made me cry. And I was like, oh my God, everyone who does this, their livelihoods were taken away, and we miss it. We love it, So that gives me hope that people are still interested in this, and this is not something that's going to go away. The other thing that does give me hope is that now there's so much more talk of inclusion. I wouldn't call it diversity anymore, because diversity and equality versus inclusion are very different things. So the fact that there's a BIPOC Equity Association delegates that's popping up, and they're really running and just hitting hard, and I'm like, yes, it's just so much. It's not, I don't know if I can put this correctly, but it's no longer the great white way. It still is, but we're working toward it, at least.
Right.
Yeah.
It's been, I think that's one of the I think really best things that's come out of the shutdown, is that it sort of put a spotlight and an ability for a lot of people to start saying, hey, when we come back, can we please change these things that are not great about our industry, and put forward some new ideas.
Maybe
Brenden,
a 5-day work week.
Yeah, exactly. Let's think about maybe how many hours we're working and who we're hiring and all of that sort of stuff. Brenden, I'll give you the last word on that, and then we've got some questions from the audience.
Hope. What gives hope? We all need art. And that's plain and simple. It is an essential, not essential. It is clearly, whatever form it takes, we need it. Everyone that's listening, everyone that's not listening, art is imperative. I believe that on a whole core level. And if it comes as a concert or a theater show or a presentation via Zoom, or Taylor Swift playing a ukulele on her couch or something, whatever, you know what I mean? However you connect, that's the hope. I know it's coming back because we need it to come back. Otherwise we're all going to go to the loony bin, it's not going to be healthy for anybody anymore, because it's really an outlet that culture needs, and it's proven through history. Yeah.
All right. So, Michael, we have a specific question for you. What was the pitching process like for the Super Bowl, and start to finish, how long did you spend working on that project?
I see. Yeah, I mean, it's pitches are, I've been through lots of them now. I'm going through one right now. They're all about the same as far as the overall kind of scope. They're all different timelines. And oftentimes, especially in TV, they want it tomorrow, which is which is terrible. But you got to be up for it and ready, because the opportunity comes along once in a while, and then if you're lucky enough to win or at least show well, then that leads to more work. So if you're not pitching, then you're not going to be working. For this specifically for the Super Bowl, I don't remember how long it was. It was probably 3 weeks ish from the time we got the RFP, which means request for proposal, till it was due. That was a hugely, I guess, big one, because we flew back to New York from New Orleans and presented in person at CBS and whatnot. So not all of them have in-person sort of meetings like that, but specifically for that we did, let's see, 4 or 5 sets around town and one at the Super Bowl. So they were all over the city, in Jackson Square and whatnot. There was a couple, let's see, at the Riverwalk. They were throughout the city, and they were basically stages that had a desk or had some kind of seating for the commentators to talk about whatever's going on this week of Super Bowl, because it was the entire week beforehand, live from New Orleans, 24 hours a day. So one of the really cool ideas that I'm really proud of, and I think that actually got us the gig, was like I mentioned about Katrina. It was the time when things were finally being rebuilt and we were reopening all the way up, but we took a lot of refurbished products that were, or refurbished materials that were sunk in the flood, and used those to build back the set. So for instance, one of the big desks was made out of lumber from reclaimed from some old house, and we actually put wrought iron in the front of the desk, and a big bass drum, like a jazz big bass drum as the front centerpiece. So the pieces were really specifically New Orleans, and also tied in with the story of what's happening with the city. And those kind of ideas are because I'm from the theater, and that's how we do it. And so I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but I'm really proud of that. So I'm not sure how long it took to answer your question, but generally it's 3-ish weeks, hopefully. The one I'm doing right now was a 2-week process. Sometimes they pay for a pitch, and I often use that entire amount of money to put into the pitch, to hire people to help or to whatever. When it doesn't, it's just kind of an investment. And it's a smaller sort of production level from our company. But I think that's it. If there's anything else, please write in. I'm happy to answer any more about that.
Okay. It's clear from what you've been saying that in order to be successful in theater, you need to have good contacts. Do you have advice on how to gain those contacts?
Social media is crazy these days. Like, I hate to say it, but it's like it's networking. That's what it is. The core of it is networking. So you have a bunch of people that are looking at the same exact thing that you like to do or you like to be. That's a network right there. That's where I would start. I think that's where to start. Where I started, I just go and I get a job and I try to intern. I try to get a gig on something that I want to be doing, whether it's at a theater or at a shop or at wherever, a festival. When these things come back, get your foot in the door, because the connections you make when you're working are the ones that pay. I mean, look, Cully and Michael right here met and worked and continue to coexist together. Like, it's off of a job. Like, it's all springboard off of a job. So find an entry level one and do it, and then see what it is. And then if it doesn't work out, find another one, because that's how it worked for me. Just intern, and then there you go, and know enough people, and then the things start to overlap, and then you're all right.
Yeah, I'll definitely double down on that. That it really is starting wherever you are. Whatever thing gets your foot in the door, um, do it. And then how to stay there is to not be an eager beaver or a know-it-all. Um,
Mm.
like I shadowed a tour of Hairspray in Philadelphia. I loaded it in, kept a manager. 5 years later, he hires me for the Warhorse tour. So
Wow.
stuff like that, you never know. You never know. Stay in touch. Be nice. Keep your email short and sweet. And reach out to the
Great advice.
people.
My two cents.
There's never been, oh, sorry.
No, go
There's
ahead.
never been like more of a time now than to reach out to people, because what are we like, I'm sitting at home, so if you find someone who loves what you're doing, or who loves what they're doing as much as you love it, they'll probably be happy to talk to you. Everyone starts out pretty much,
Okay.
I'll say real quick to button that is when you get your foot in the door or whatever the project is that you're lucky enough to get, do good work, do really good work, commit to it, be passionate about it, enjoy it, don't take it for granted anyway. I mean, there's no other, like I said earlier, we're trying to make stuff, and it's good to be passionate about things. It makes you feel good about what you're doing, and it feels like it's important in some way. But other people will see that and will experience that when you're giving that kind of energy. So my input is do good work, and you'll continue to get jobs.
100%.
I think do good work and keep your emails short and sweet are like the best life advice that you could get on just about anything. Like that's like keep the email short is great life advice. Cherie, you've already spoken to this a little bit, but the theater industry is grappling right now with the long overdue examination of equity and inclusion as part of its practices. What are your hopes in this moment for theater as an industry?
So many hopes. I know that a lot of shows on Broadway, well, I wouldn't say a lot, a few, have started like an EDI of their own. Same thing with the Stage Manager Association. They have their own inclusion uh, sort of panel group of people working together. It, unfortunately, it takes a lot, and I think it's going to take a lot of calling in and calling out of people to say, hey, that's why would you even say that, telling people to do a certain accent, telling people that they sound like they have English as a second language. That's, you know, um and calling that out. I feel hopeful that more people and more allies will now be able to be like, no, you know. So that's my hope.
Great. Do you guys want to speak to that, or?
I think I don't want to single out, this is singling out theater industry, there's a lot of systemic issues, but we see, but to what Cherie was saying, it's like now it's like the conversation is not only begun and continues on and is strong and is present, like there's numerous times that this stuff comes up, again, I'm saying this, but and it's like, oh, that's it, and it fizzles away, and then then it flares up again. But this is not a flare up any longer. Like that's kind of my hope, is that it's not a flare up anymore. It's a fire. It's cooking, and we just got to keep on feeding it, because we're going to have more and more allies. It's not going to be acceptable to do the status quo anymore. And there's some hiring practices that are still baked in that are going to be hard to get away from, but we have acknowledged those, we see it, so that's really, and it's, there's got to be accountability. It's always, there's not accountability for a lot of this stuff, and now it's coming out that you have to. So that's my hope, is that I'm with Cherie. It's like, let the call outs continue, and then it's not a call out anymore. It's really everyone just voicing a common opinion, as opposed to singling out one woman or one black guy or one this or one that. It's like, so that's really the key, is like keep the conversation hot and loud.
Right.
Yeah, I think that the accountability is what you're talking about is at an all-time high. You know, everyone's accountable for what they're doing and what they're saying. And I don't think that that's been the case, you know, or maybe we didn't know we should be to that level of accountability, or we didn't want to be. So I agree with you, and I think that that's amazing, and that's such a great thing. And I think another amazing thing to be hopeful for is because we've been isolated and separated and out of work and just eager for the world to come back. Um, you know, we really want it. You know, we really want it to be, and maybe we didn't know it until it was taken away from us. And I guess that's how things go. But I think that there's will be a different level of desire and passion. I hope so. You know.
I think we all do. So we're a little bit over time. I'm just going to ask one last question, just a little short and sweet to wrap things up. What's your bucket list show or your bucket list project?
I want to be paid to work in Japan again. Favorite place on earth.
Nice.
Wow, there's so many big, you know, it's not about the big ones anymore. You know, it used to be about let's do the Super Bowls, let's do the, you know, all the big stuff, you know, and that's good and you got to do them. But I really like the ones I like to travel, you know, like get to go. So like Japan is awesome, you know, get paid to go out to Japan again. Yeah, you know, I didn't think of it as a bucket list, but any ones I get to travel and it's a good trip. And we get some R&R time on our, you know, you get some work time, great. We're all there. We're at the venue and we're doing our thing. But if you're able to get away and still be on the clock and like any of those gigs are good. Those are on the bucket list for me. And they pay well. All right, great. Even win-win, you know?
Yeah, bucket list for me is to do more theater. You know, I think that that's what this talk is about, you know, all of the things that we're doing outside of theater. But for me personally, you know, I'm on a parallel course with theater. You know, I'm not doing theater. I'm doing something like it, but I'm not doing it. And once in a while, I'm doing, you know, shows as I can, but just because I love it, not to make money, because it's hard to make money doing it. But long story short is I'd like to get to a place where I can do more of that.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight and for giving some great advice to our students and talking to everyone. This has been a really great conversation. I'm so thrilled to have been able to talk to you guys, see you again, meet you for the first time, you know, all the way around. For those in the audience, our next installment of the Crushing the Curve digital series is going to be Behind the Curtain, which is kind of a recorded look backstage at our production of Pippin that was unfortunately canceled this semester. There will be some look at the design work that was done and some recordings of some of the songs and dance numbers that were put together. And that's going to be released on August 15th. But keep an eye on the Weber State Performing Arts page for the rest of the installments in the series this semester. And I'll see you guys at those events. Thank you again, and have a great night, everybody.
Take care, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Cully. Thanks, Jessica. Thanks to you both.